Mic check, mic check.
Mic check, mic check. Checking all them mics.
Mic check,
Hi,
mic
Mike.
check.
Just checking on you.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show
Let's
for
see a
you.
doctor.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from behind enemy lines. Definitely not in the field or in Russia.
Yeah, as
On
Dire's
YouTube, where
audio
speech is not
quality
free.
indicates, definitely not behind enemy lines anywhere.
Anyways, my internet is definitely not being broadcast over string and cup. So
Dire Wolf
on
Media
YouTube, where
coming
speech is
to
not
you
free.
live from an Etch-a-Sketch.
Speech, well, on YouTube, where speech is not free, and the truth is demonetized. Also on many other platforms, so I might want to eventually update this opener. But alongside me is my co-host Fox Trevize, who has normal audio because he's not deployed.
That's true. I don't know. It kind of feels like a war zone over here. Gas shot up like 60 cents this week, and Joe Biden's saying Armageddon is here. So feels
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, it feels like the whole globe might become deployed location soon.
Also, Subway was out of bacon this week, which is just like, I mean, you want to know what's the signs of the end times? I mean, come on, Subway's out of bacon. How much worse is stuff going to get? Like,
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, I know people in Ukraine have kind of bad right now, but we're without bacon. I mean, we're at least equally suffering.
why is Streamlabs broadcasting itself instead of my capture monitor? Great.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, Streamlabs.
Same
Right
labs.
now, we're just broadcasting the Streamlabs console instead of the window that it's supposed to be broadcasting. Thanks,
It's a peek
Streamlabs.
behind the curtain.
Yeah. Great.
This is,
Well,
this is
why
how all the magic happens.
I'll stop interrupting you, and you can do the intro while I try to fix this.
Great idea. Let's do that. So, as always, we have a great show for you. I mean, not by what's indicated so far, but I promise you it gets better. That's a lie. But first, we have to thank our sponsors. This show is only possible because of viewers like you. We're better than PBS, though. We would especially like to thank those of you that donate to us financially, including Kaylet, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, The White Lion, Timberwolf. I forgot you did that to the script earlier. The White Wolf, Adder Lupus, and all the other wolves.
Which
Money
thing
is
did
in
I
the
do? I
open-
forget.
You wrote in the script after White Lion, wubba wubba dubba wubba dubba dub dub.
Yes.
And you're hoping I would just read that mindlessly. But I don't. So money isn't the only way you can give to us. We also appreciate people liking, subscribing us on DLive, Twitch, YouTube, and especially, most of all, Rumble. Please follow us on Rumble.
That's true.
Any case, we have a couple funny clips for you. I'm not sure if Fox is actually ready with them, but the first one is we found out what Biden's 2 words for our country is. You want to hear those 2 important words are?
If you can delay for another 15 seconds, we can.
Okay. All right. Well,
Welcome to the
it-
Dire
it's, obviously he had another gaffe, and it's kind of
Wow, the
easy. We have-
industry right now is just a nightmare.
yeah. It's not so bad. They're used to it. So we actually have 3 different gaffes from just this week, and I mean, you can say that about any given week.
Let me
It's
start-
just every time he has a public address, it's always something. This is a great supercut. I did post it in here because you guys have probably already seen enough, but it's just a long video of just his inability to speak. It's pretty funny.
Yep. And here's
Anyways,
the
ready
first
with this
one.
first video?
Yeah, we'll see if the audio plays.
Start off with 2 words.
Whoa.
Made in America. Made in America. Wow, she's bad at math. Let me start off with 2 words. Made in
Yeah, and that's probably the best of Biden this week. The least screwed up thing that he said this week.
At least he's talking about, made in America, which, I mean, obviously I don't believe him because he's actually pushing jobs overseas and,
Why
not
wouldn't you?
making things in America.
Why
but,
wouldn't you believe
yeah.
that Joe wants made in America? I mean, he was a truck driver. He drove truck, which is how truck drivers say it.
But like, it's just for one example. He says that we're going to make American solar panels. Yeah, okay, they're assembled in America, but we're buying the parts from China.
Are we even assembling them in America?
They're saying they are.
Joe was a
that's
coal miner. I mean, do you not believe in his made in America? I mean, he was a coal miner.
He never did a physical job in his life. He had a silver spoon, man.
He mined coal.
So he doesn't really know how to count. It could happen to anybody, though, right? I mean, it's not like he was one in a million gaffes. But we found out from Biden also this week that you don't ever fuck with the Biden family, right?
What's true?
We got a clip of that as well.
Thanks for everything. Thanks for coming down. We appreciate it.
No one
Yeah, I got
and I can't argue with your brothers outside the house.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
so no one fucks with the Biden family unless you're OPEC, China, a bicycle, or a set of stairs, right?
Yes. Joe loves saying the F-bombs on camera. I actually, I remember very early on in my political awakening, I happened to be at home during the day on a school day for various reasons. But I was watching the news while Obama was signing Obamacare, the Obamacare bill. And I saw it happen live, and I heard it happen live. Joe Biden whisper into Obama's ear while the mic was hot, "This is a big fucking deal." And I remember hearing that. I think I was a junior in high school, and I was like, holy crap. And I went back to school for my AP Gov class later that day, and nobody believed me. I was like, no, it's going to be a thing. Just wait till tomorrow. And by the next day, there was already T-shirts that had Joe Biden's face and a cartoon bomb with an F on it.
Yeah.
It was funny.
So this isn't much as much of a gaffe as it is kind of a window into how he really views his family and how he's going to use whatever power he has to crush anyone who would dare oppose him, including his pedophile drug dealing son.
Well, it was out of context too, right? So he's down in Florida right now. I guess, I don't know what he's doing down there. I guess just getting photo ops with DeSantis, who's done a by all accounts, amazing job with the disaster that he was given. And it's just completely out of context. Like, you don't fuck with a Biden. Like, what's that got to do with anything? You're here to, like, help these people and, like, coordinate federal aid. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So strange again. I feel like it kind of shows a window into the soul of the Biden family, how they are going to do whatever power they have to protect each other and also crush their people who would dare criticize them. And that's not the kind of mindset you want to have in a leader.
Also, just narcissism in the face of, like, national disaster.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about me.
Yeah. And the whole goal of this, what they're doing there is to help people who are literally dying, and from not having the supplies they need and having everything stolen from them by the storm. So he's there to help people, and his focus is on no one's gonna fuck with me or my family. Pretty messed up. Definitely not focused on the right thing. But we did also learn something else about Joe Biden this week. Did you know he's from a Puerto Rican community? He's basically Puerto Rican.
Yeah, he's Puerto Rican himself, actually.
He's actually
have a very, in relative terms, large Puerto Rican population.
Hey, you started the video early.
Relative.
What's that?
I said I was in the middle of talking. You started the video. So yeah, he's Puerto Rican in the same sense that Elizabeth Warren is Native American.
No, Elizabeth Warren is way more Native American than Joe Biden is Puerto Rican. That is not a fair comparison. Elizabeth Warren is like 500 times more Native American than Joe is Puerto Rican.
She's about as Native American as anyone else in America, though.
Yes. I mean, as far as racial grifting goes, this was a doozy. All right, are we ready now?
Yep. Yes.
To our population. We Have a very, in relative terms, large Puerto Rican population in Delaware, relative to our population. We have the 8th largest black population in the country, and between all minorities, we have 20% of our state is minority. And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home politically. Have a very, in relative.
Okay. So he said because his country, so his state had the 8th largest black community, and 20% of the population was quote unquote minority, meaning anything but white. Because of that, he concludes that they had a large Puerto Rican community. Is he assuming that if you are a minority, you are the same? Is he saying that because there's black people in the community, that they're basically the same as being Puerto Rican? Because he didn't quote how many Puerto Ricans are there. He said blacks and minority people, and only 20% of the population.
I mean, they all vote Democrats, so how different could they be?
Well, then he puts the weasel word on the end there. They go, we got basically had a Puerto Rican community politically. Well, wait, are you saying that because of left-wing politics that you have a Puerto Rican community because
it was
you view their politics all be the same? Yeah,
it was a corrupt kleptocracy, just like Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. Because so it's a left-wing hellhole full of corruption, just like Puerto Rico, and so that's why he thinks that he grew up in a Puerto Rican community.
Yeah, if your town or state or country is run by corrupt oligarchs who are only in it for themselves and will use demagoguery to convince people to vote for them, even though it's not in their best interest, then you are also Puerto Rican politically.
Puerto Rican is one of the smallest demographic groups in his state, in Delaware. One of the smallest percentages.
Yeah, it's
he definitely did.
Ladder Cratter did some fact check on that, and I believe the result was that it was like 0.02% of the Delaware population was Puerto Rican. I mean, you could like count them on one hand.
Yeah, Delaware is mostly white, wealthy liberals.
I mean, that's like a rounding error for Puerto Ricans that happen to be driving or flying over the state. Driving through or flying over. Yeah.
How does he think? Like, how do you think this can be believable?
Let me stop you right there, Dyer. How does he think?
Oh, you're right. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, thinking on the topic of people who don't think, let's talk about the next story.
Yes, the red SUV.
Yes, it's an unthinking vehicle.
Yes. So
I hear that the SUV is actually in court.
Yes. I forgot about this meme here. It's a great meme. Love it. All right. Yeah. So I forgot to change the boost on my monitor again, which is why everything's washed out. I'll fix that in a moment, guys. Alrighty. So the Waukesha, you guys may remember the Waukesha terrorist attack last year. I believe it was in November, maybe December. It was actually around the time of the Rittenhouse trial, and basically there was a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and the person, the bag of human filth and garbage that's on the screen, he drove a red SUV. Now the red SUV did not drive itself, as CNN reported, but this guy drove the red SUV over a bunch of people who were at a Christmas parade, and killed like 6 of them and severely maimed and like forever changed the lives of like dozens of others.
40 people.
Yeah.
Killed 6, injured 40.
Yeah. A lot of them were like kids. So the trial for this is going on this week. To CNN's surprise, the red van is not in the courtroom. I thought that the red van had the right to face its accusers, but I guess not. From my understanding, they just took it straight to the impound lot, and it's scheduled for being crushed. Which, if it doesn't get a fair trial, what does this nation come to? However, this guy who, nothing to do with the red SUV. It's weird.
Innocent man. He was in the driver's seat.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, he was just in the driver's seat being held captive by a red SUV while it mowed over children. Yeah, so the case for that, the court case for that is going on this week. It started this week. I believe that they went through the first 2 days already. And to my great shock, the guy who did it, the guy who ran over all these people, is representing himself in court. He didn't get a lawyer. I think he has a lawyer advising him, but he's representing himself, which means that he's the one doing examinations and cross-examinations of witnesses, which has led to some pretty severely, like, not just like awkward, like that's not the right way to frame it. It's just like kind of disgusting that these victims of his that are on the stand to testify against what a monster he is, he gets one last shot at them to harass them while they're on stand. And that was made very evident this week that was his goal, is basically just to harass as many of his victims that are still alive and testifying against him. He just gets to another chance to harass them. And it is, of course, your constitutional right to represent yourself, though he who represents himself is usually represented by an idiot, as is the case with this guy. But in this case, just because of the court case is really a formality here. It was, the court system was designed at a time when we didn't have high definition video at 50 different angles of events like these. And that was because since we didn't have that stuff, we needed a process by which we could discern the truth. However, in the modern era, some crimes that are captured on tape substantially, you don't necessarily need a trial by jury to discern the truth. We still have it out of tradition and out of the laws that exist currently. But I am comfortable stating, for myself, declaratively, that this man did murder those 6 people and maimed like 40 some others. And you don't really need a court case to prove that. And so because there is so much proof, not just evidence, proof that he did it, it's a little bit disgusting that he gets to parade around the courtroom harassing the victims one last time.
On that note, so the judge had ruled that against a motion from the prosecution. The prosecution had said that they wanted to allow the witnesses to not have their faces shown on video while giving their testimony, because everything's being recorded for public and is publicly accessible. And they know that this guy, this pile of filth here, is going to harass them, and that they are going to be targets of harassment outside of court because of the left-wing activists who are insane and support this murderer may actually go after the witnesses after they give their testimony and try to give credible threats to them, try to harm them or scare them. And so they asked for the most minute amount of protection and saying, hey, when they give the testimony, don't show their face so it's easier to find them, right? And the judge said, nope, it's a public trial. They need to be shown on video giving the testimony. And the prosecution did a filing saying, hey, to reconsider because you're going to expose them. The point of this guy's goal is to direct harassment at them. And when he was given a chance to rebut that, he made it very obvious that his goal was for them to be exposed so they could be harassed.
Yeah, and so this is being broadcast because it's in the public interest, in the same way that the Ghislaine Maxwell trial was not broadcast because it was not in the public interest. In the same way that the Kyle Rittenhouse trial was broadcast because it was in the public interest. So there's two kinds of cases. There's cases like these where it's really important that the public see every aspect of it, and then there's cases where an international cabal of pedophiles involving like the Clintons and a bunch of other elected representatives throughout the world. That's really not of the public interest. So I can see why they didn't choose to broadcast that, and no one was at risk of having their faces and identities revealed during that. But yeah, I can see why they would broadcast this one, because this one would be, it's definitely needed for the public commentary. Not like Ghislaine Maxwell. That's definitely not important there.
Doesn't seem very consistent, does it?
No, it doesn't. So let's see here. So the judge allowed the Waukesha Parade massacre suspect to represent himself You do have the legal right to represent yourself in court, as dumb as that may be. The driver was found by court evaluators that he was of sound mind to stand trial. As a reminder, Darrell Brooks is the suspect and murderer. He drove his red SUV intentionally into a Christmas parade in Waukesha, killing 6 and injuring 40 others. Yes, he was clearly aiming for the people. His social media shows he had a hatred of white people and was angry over the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, which we were very happy about. The left-wing media condemned Kyle as a murderer, but they did little coverage of the parade massacre that killed, saying that the people who were killed by a red SUV. And there was never any discussion of the motive or explanation of what happened beyond the red SUV killed people. Even recently, while writing about the trial, I think it was CBS actually restated that the trial was about a red SUV that had run over Christmas parade goers. Not like again, like recently this week that article was released. I think it was CBS. I forgot to look it up for the show, but yeah, they're still going with that. They're still going with that narrative.
Someone really needs to Photoshop in the red SUV at the court, sitting in the chair and having Darrell Brooks. Be the
somebody
lawyer.
did. I couldn't find it. I saw it earlier this week. Somebody basically photoshopped the red SUV as his head in the courtroom. But I couldn't find it for the show, unfortunately.
Well, this pile of shit here is now in court representing himself, as he may have predicted. He's been very combative and disruptive. He's been thrown out of the courtroom by the judge several times. He's started taking his clothes off and yelled at during the court proceedings. They've had to mute him many times. He's now in a separate courtroom connected through video chat where the judge can mute him when she no longer needs a statement from him.
Yeah,
so
the reason he had to go to a different courtroom is because he was like basically fighting the police and the bailiff that were in the room. He just started fighting them in the middle of proceedings. Like it's pretty wild.
And he has additional charges now because of his behavior during court, but they have to keep him there. They actually are having to shackle him to his chair now because he would not stop being disruptive.
Well, this kind of goes to show that the judge is either lacking competence or made a miscalculation, right? Because part of this was, is he competent to stand trial or to represent himself? And she said, yeah. And I mean, if he can't, contain himself enough to represent himself, then maybe that was a miscalculation there.
Yeah, I mean, just because he is full of hatred and disrespects the system of laws doesn't mean he's clinically insane. But still, if you are violent, have no respect for the court, and have ill intent for the witnesses and the jury, I don't think that you just get a right where you can act like this and still represent yourself. If you are not safe to be in the courtroom, then you've given up your place there.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think that's a great way to put it, is that you've given up your right. Like you have this right, but that right doesn't extend to the point where you can be violent and dangerous to other people, at which point you've forfeited that right. Right.
All right, so we got a video here, just a little example, starting at 54 seconds, of Darrell Brooks in the courtroom.
Raises these issues really just by simple statements. He has never filed an appropriate motion. Motions are governed by state law. Written motions require that the specific relief be requested, that the motion be based on law and fact. I've never gotten anything even close to that from Mr. Brooks. Even if I were to accept an oral motion, which can be proper at times, he has failed to follow the simplest of procedural requirements. He continues to be in the other courtroom. You can see on the monitor, he's standing, he's facing the other direction, he's yelling I can't hear him, but it appears that he is yelling. I muted him because of his interruptions of the court, and I understand he objects. His objection is, again, once is noted.
Joining us today is legal analyst Kristen.
Well,
There's a small example of it. In one exchange, he accused a juror of flipping him off, both when entering and leaving, possibly in an attempt to get a mistrial. But assuming he did this, made this lie to get a mistrial, would also be assuming that he isn't just batshit crazy.
yeah. So the end of that was the juror that he was accusing was not actually in the room on the date that he was accusing of it happening. He said that happened during jury selection, and she wasn't in the room during the day that he said that happened.
There you go.
The one of the first witnesses was also his, I believe, former, I don't think current, girlfriend, who was the first victim of him that day, where I believe it was her SUV, and he started off the day by running her over with the SUV before then taking it to the parade. So he was berating her on stand to the point where the judge stopped questioning and said, like, you've exhausted your ability to examine the witness, and closed that session. There was also, he's had an exchange with some of the police officers that were there that day, where he keeps asking them, who is the plaintiff in this case? And they keep responding that it's the state of Wisconsin. And he says, okay, so there is no person, which is the victim. It's the state. And they go, yeah. And so I believe he's attempting to build a case that there is, in fact, no victims of his crime, because no victims are the plaintiff in the case. It's the state that's the plaintiff in the case. However, in murder cases, it's always the state that is the plaintiff in that event, because usually the murder victim is not there to represent themselves.
That's insane. Like, how does he expect to overturn all the precedent, which is our entire legal history? That is the precedent for this.
Yeah, so he keeps thinking that he's got these gotchas, and I guess we'll see where that goes. I'd be real curious to see if I don't know. I guess every time the state is the plaintiff in a case, then I guess there's
so
no
if you
victims.
murder someone under his logic, then you're innocent because there's no one to accuse you, because the person
Exactly.
that can accuse you.
I mean, that makes sense.
But
right?
what about the 40 injured people who are alive? He wants separate cases against all of them?
Dire details.
Okay.
You know,
It's insane.
yeah,
But then again, we knew that he was insane because he's representing himself.
exactly. Well, I mean, think about how much more insane it would be if they had the red SUV in the room. I think that's why they didn't have the case with the red SUV. I think it would have just been out of control like it was that day.
Yes. No one at the helm. Oh, wait a minute. He was there.
We do
But
have a
anyways.
video of him yelling about the flipping
Yes,
people off.
we can watch
Do you wanna
that.
watch that?
Yeah. if you
Noticed
want.
that one of the jurors, the lady in the black that's closest to the screen in that corner chair over there, I recognized her from my initial appearance. She flipped me off coming in to my initial appearance and coming out. I know it's her for a fact. I seen her about like how I'm looking at you right now, so I know for a fact that's her. I don't want that to end up being an issue. Is this some type of way that could be addressed by Your Honor?
Mr. Brooks, you had an opportunity to exercise preemptory strikes and even to question jurors about that. You chose not to. So at this point, any issue you have with that juror is waived.
Okay, you do remember that I was not present in the courtroom. I couldn't see. All I can see from that courtroom in there is just you, Your Honor, and the prosecution's table. I can't even see the bailiffs. So
how
there's
did
no
you
way
see-
for me to even see who the jury was. Obviously, I wouldn't know them by name. If I would have been able to see the jurors, I would have immediately addressed that.
I will make this one indulgence. I'll have the civilian bailiff ask that juror if she was in attendance at your initial appearance. out of an abundance of caution. These are jurors, though, who with the jury questionnaires were also asked what knowledge they had about proceedings they watched or even attended. And no one, to my knowledge, has disclosed anything like that, but out of an abundance of...
So basically he was accusing them of like the initial pre-trial hearings, which would have taken place last year even. He's saying, oh, one of the jurors was actually at the trial, the pre-trial, and flipped me off while they were sitting in the crowd. And then now she's here as a juror. But that would have been caught pretty quickly during voir dire to not let them be a juror.
That seems extremely unlikely as well to have happened.
Oh, does it? Does it now?
Yeah. Like, what are the chances that particular person who got mailed for jury duty just happened to be there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because it would have been randomly selected.
How dare you?
Juicy Nick.
Why would you do that?
This is one of the rare times where a tasteful public hanging would be appropriate. Even black people are like, yeah, let's lynch him. We'll even do it for you so it doesn't look racist. They can hang the red SUV too if it makes people feel better.
I think you should use the red SUV like the way they did in like the Wild West.
Counterweight.
Like, well, no, you like sit on a horse and then you get the hung and then like somebody slaps the horse on the ass and they run off out from underneath you. Where you do that with the red SUV, you just slap it on the ass and it would just take off on its own because it's sentient. And then he would just be left there swinging. Yeah,
I thought you could.
Go ahead.
You could have like a bridge or something tall. You bring the rope down from and tie it around one of his ankles, and have it tied to the car on top of that bridge, and then just push the car off as a counterweight. It'll just fling him into the air after it pulls him up.
Yeah,
it'd be more interesting than hanging.
You know, one of the I don't know if not really like a benefit or a detriment, but just one of the features of civilization and the heights of civilization which the West has accomplished is that we are very careful to punish and very, very slow to execute. And these people like Darrell Brooks and like the left who are trying to tear apart this society, trying to tear apart the criminal justice system and the legal system and all of that. The result of a societal collapse that they're attempting to engineer is that we will be less slow to punish, less slow to execute. You know, should we have the fallout world that people like Darrell Brooks would rather us live in, where it is just anarchy in the streets at all moments, do you think that he'd still be around for his trial if society was in broad collapse like what the left is trying to go for? I think
he'd been killed right that day.
Yeah, I think a posse would have been formed to find him as they did in the old days, and that's how they would have done it. A tasteful public hanging, as it were. Thank you very much for the comment and the $10 triumvirate. Much appreciated. Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll see where this trial goes. I'm guessing we know where it's going to end, but there will probably be no shortage of shenanigans during the trial. What is it? Courtroom TV or Law TV? I forget who's doing it. It's the people that did the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. They're basically broadcasting every moment of the trial, just like the Kyle trial. So there should be lots of interesting videos coming from that. I guess we'll see what's good depending on what other stories are going on next week.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, our next story is also
Cori Bush,
black terrorist.
Yes, actually it is. Cori Bush knowingly tricked black girls into forced abortions.
Wow.
Whoa, what?
Whoa, Dyer,
Whoa.
Come on, that can't be true. There's no way that's true. I mean, that's pretty high accusation.
That's a pretty big claim right there. Let's read the story and see what actually happened.
There's no way that, like, you know, she admitted to that on camera. Right?
This is one of those times where we make a headline that's just to be shocking, and then we go on to disprove it, right?
Correct.
No?
No. Incorrect.
Okay. So, Cori Bush is one of the moron squad of the far left congresswoman she recently published an autobiography. So being part of the squad, she's like with AOC and those other two.
I think she's actually not part of the main squad. I think she's like the fifth wheel on it. I can't remember.
She's definitely mentioned along with them often. So she's definitely a far leftist Democrat, somewhat recently into office. So Cori Bush recently did an autobiography in which she tells a graphic story about how she at age 17 was convinced that her only option was to get an abortion, and how the abortion clinic had forced her to have the abortion when she changed her mind and asked them not to proceed. She said no.
19.
Sorry, 19. She had said she didn't want to continue before they started the procedure, and they started anyways. So they forced her on her. They penetrated her body without her permission and killed her baby without her permission. And she told that graphic story in her autobiography. Here is a clip of her talking about it.
Working on it.
Okay.
I thought it was my fault before, so it was like that. You did this. You should have done this differently. You shouldn't have let them in your room. And I write in the book about just kind of internalizing that. But then also when I went to go have that abortion, being treated so differently. I thought that when they said go into counseling, so I went into the room to get counseling, and instead of being told like, hey, there's the option of adoption, or like talking about other things, it was your baby is underweight, and you can always get pregnant again. You need to go ahead and have this done. You're going to end up on welfare. You're not going to have a future. It was just
is Cori Bush some kind of like pro-life Christian crisis pregnancy center advocate?
No, actually, she's been a huge advocate of no limitation abortions.
Oh, and she's probably also been part of the group that's been calling out crisis pregnancy centers for tricking women into not getting abortions by showing them the other options like adoption.
She's been supporting those. Planned Parenthood clinics that have been doing these things for women and convincing them that the only option is the one option that makes them money.
Pretty crazy.
Just one thing after the next, and I had just turned 18, and I had just turned 18. I felt like I had disappointed my parents who had pushed me and worked, done so much for me. So I was already having this. I couldn't go to Tuskegee, which was my dream. Right. Tuskegee University in Alabama. Like all of those things were crashing in on me. And then to hear this, knowing that I was carrying a child that I didn't know how I could take care of, how I would be able to take care of, I needed that adult that had this expertise to help me, and that didn't happen. But then when I went into the next room, hearing the white girls, I was the only black girl, but hearing the white girls talk about, they were so nice, and they told me, that I could go ahead and have it, and they, would set up resources for me, or all of these, they all had the same story. They didn't know my story. They were just having a conversation that I walked in on, and I was crushed. Why was my story different? Why was I treated? Why am I the one that'll end up on welfare? And then they fed that to me.
Yeah. You ended up in Congress.
Yeah, I ended up in
That's enough. Okay, so there's another clip we're going to show you with even more elaboration.
Can I just say I believe her that Planned Parenthood is more likely to kill black babies than white babies, and I believe them.
The stats
I believe that is for racist reasons. I believe all of that because I know it's a trope, but the Democrats are the real racists. The Democrats are the ones that want ethnic cleansing. All of their ideology points towards that, and yeah, it's well known the history of Planned Parenthood. It's well known the statistics of Planned Parenthood. It's well known geographically where Planned Parenthoods are likely to pop up, and yeah, I fully believe that with all of that structural racism, that there's actual real racists that do get hired at Planned Parenthood, and when they see a white woman, they they shed a little tear inside that those white babies are going to get killed, and so they'll say, hey, here's some other options. But when they see a black person, they're like, all right, we got another sacrifice for Moloch. Let's get on with it. I fully believe
so
that.
There's a second clip where she goes into more of the abortion experience when we talk about, like we were referring to earlier, where she said no and they did it anyways. But this separate video was very important because she explained that she was being told her only option was abortion, whereas white women were not being told that. That people like her, black women, are being told this is your only option because they are trying to systemically kill babies, trying to, like assembly line, like a machine, just murder black babies as much as possible. And she was aware of that. And now here's the second clip.
University, and you got to the clinic and had second thoughts.
Yes.
Walk me through what happened.
So I was thinking back to the first abortion. Okay, you've done this before. You know the rooms. You know what it looks like. You know what it feels like in this place. You know what to expect. So I thought I was ready. And I went in. I was helped up onto the table by the nurse. And I laid there and I started to think, well, one, I didn't tell the father that was about to happen. I just felt like I needed more time. So I said, no, you know what? I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. And the nurse just, wouldn't listen to me. And I said, no, I'm not ready. And as I'm saying no, they continued to pull the instruments and, get everything ready. And it was just like, no, calm down. No, you're going to be okay.
Okay, so you were telling them that you didn't want to move forward.
Yes.
And they were ignoring you.
They absolutely ignored me. Even to the point of, like calm down, as if I was the problem. And so I didn't really know, I didn't understand at that point where I had a voice, like who listened to me. And so I remember laying there looking to see if there was someone else in the room that would listen to me. And they ended up during this time, they put the instrument inside me and started the instrument. So it was, and I'm saying no, but it was too late because you couldn't stop once it started.
Why do you think?
It's disgusting.
Yeah, well, and what was the instrument? It was probably one of those vacuum
suction.
Cleaners. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cori Bush is a black woman, and she'll go on in this interview to say that the reason why she wasn't listened to is because she was black and there's racism. And again, I believe that. I'll buy that. I'll buy that Planned Parenthood's full of racists. But Cori Bush also she publicly advocates for Planned Parenthood. She publicly advocates for limitless abortion, and to the point where she says that restrictions on abortion are racism. And so, Dyer, you're a straight white male and pro-life, and I just want to know, as somebody that's trying to prevent black babies from being aborted, do you take responsibility for forcibly aborting her black baby? I mean, this is clearly your fault.
It's insane that she can have in her mind that the white male patriarchy racist that want her to not abort her baby are also the ones that are responsible for running the abortion clinic that is targeting her to kill her baby.
Yeah. The cognitive dissonance is off the charts. And she clearly she wanted that baby because she calls it a baby. She said it had a father. She called it a baby. It was her child that was killed. And, it had that quantum state of, is it a fetus or is it a child? And she decided at the last moment that she wanted it to be her child. And then they sucked it out with a vacuum cleaner and murdered her child. But if instead she had decided that, it was just a fetus, a clump of cells, then it would have, the probability field would have collapsed into a clump of cells and it wouldn't have been a big deal. You're just removing a clump of cells from your body, which happens all the time. but because she wanted it, it was a child and it was murder. And had she not wanted it, then it wouldn't have been murder. And her having been in that situation twice, once where it was a little bit more consensual, she says multiple ages during different stories. That's why Dyer screwed up the age, and it's not his fault. It's because she says different ages all the time for these stories. And then she also has, this was her second abortion, and the age that she was for both of them kind of fluctuates depending on who she's telling it to. But basically, she had an abortion around the time she was 17 that seemed a little bit more consensual on her part. And then this abortion was around the time she was 19 or maybe late 18. And that was where she had changed her mind mid-stride. And so she had one where it was just removing a clump of unwanted cells, and she had one where it was murdering her child. And she doesn't have the, I guess it would be hard, wouldn't it, Dyer? Is if she had to get rid of that cognitive dissonance, then she'd have to admit to herself that she killed not one, but two children. And that'd probably be pretty hard for her to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big reason why she is able to have these two contradictory thoughts in her head. Is she doesn't want to accept that abortion is bad, or that because it would mean that she had killed children. She had been okay with allowing these doctors to kill her babies. And yeah.
Oh, just in support of that cognitive dissonance, she not only can't admit to herself that she killed two babies, but she has to, have evidence for that lie that it was okay. And so she's become a big proponent for abortion, big proponent for Planned Parenthood, and a big proponent that restricting abortion access is racist against black people, which is why we titled the segment that Cori Bush is knowingly tricking black girls into forced abortions, because the idea that she's the only person that this has ever happened to is completely ridiculous. It seems that Planned Parenthood was very comfortable with somebody who changed their mind and them just doing it anyway. It seemed like they were very comfortable with doing that. And Cori Bush knows that that's what happens, especially to black girls. She just talked about how Planned Parenthood was racist to her because she was a black girl, and they were much more likely to kill her baby than if she was white. And yet, Cori Bush will still advocate for Planned Parenthood, knowing that they do this to black girls. She keeps advocating for pro-choice, even though she could be warning black girls, hey, you're gonna get tricked into them killing your baby, and these people are racist.
She's glorified abortion. She's been a part of the movement that has been praising people who get abortions and who go to abortion clinics. Cori Bush is, by the way, she said that she told this story in her autobiography because she had never really thought about the abortion that much before, which is absolutely a lie. She has told her abortion story over and over and over again. Seemingly every time you put a camera and a microphone in front of her, she would tell her abortion story because she would do it while advocating for more abortion rights or taking away abortion restrictions. So no, she has had these stories at the forefront of her mind for a very, very long time. She's advocated for abortion for the majority of her adult life while knowing that her abortion experience was not consensual and was, in her mind, a racist targeting of her to get her to abort her baby. So at the same time as her knowing it's racist and knowing it's predatory, she has been advocating for it.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild too that the lesson that she took from that experience is that there's systemic racism everywhere and that America is a systemically racist country, instead of realizing, specifically this Planned Parenthood, and maybe less specifically the Planned Parenthood organization as a whole, maybe they're the ones that are racist. Maybe abortion's wrong. Maybe this happens to more women. Maybe we should be investigating this. Maybe I should call the police and tell them that they murdered my child. Instead of any of that, she's just like, wow, I can't believe, rural conservatives that are pro-life like Dyer, I can't believe that they would kill my black baby. That's just terrible. I mean, imagine just taking the complete opposite lesson out of something, the complete wrong lesson. It's pretty wild, and yeah, like I said, it's got to be that cognitive dissonance, and sometimes when people get into cognitive dissonance like that, they have to construct a fantasy around them. And the fantasy that she's constructed around her is that, well, it's not Planned Parenthood that's racist, it's the whole country that's racist. And it's not abortion that's bad. It's people who don't want abortion that are bad. Because, if abortion was bad, well, then that would mean that she's a murderer. And so she has to not only construct a false reality around her, she's gone a long way towards trying to make that fantasy a reality. She's gone a long way towards advocating for more abortion and encouraging more black girls to get themselves into that position where maybe they too will end up in a dark room screaming, "No, I want to keep my baby," and then Planned Parenthood stuffs the vacuum cleaner up inside them anyways. Because she didn't, when she's advocating for Planned Parenthood, she's not giving a disclaimer there. She's not saying like, yes, pro-abortion, but you gotta be careful because sometimes they'll trick you. Planned Parenthood, but you gotta be careful because sometimes they're racist. Planned Parenthood, but you gotta be careful because sometimes you might be screaming, "No, no, don't kill my baby," and they will strap you to a table and stuff a vacuum cleaner inside your vagina anyways. She's not doing any of that. She's just saying, yeah, abortion's good. Hands off my uterus. Well, what about the abortion doctors when they...
So we have a clip here of her, it's 28 seconds here, of her telling her abortion story and advocating for abortion.
Many of you know my story. When I was 17, I was raped, I became pregnant, and I chose to have an abortion weeks later when I turned 18. That experience sits in the heart of my understanding of what abortions fundamentally are. They are indispensable, they are essential, they are non-negotiable health care. Since the day of the Supreme Court draft opinion, since it became public,
Okay, so she believes that abortion, based on her experience, is essential health care.
And that was her first
She thinks
abortion.
it's essential. She also referenced that in the previous clip where she was being treated racistly.
Yeah.
So she believes that her experience where she was feeling targeted and being told that she had to give up her baby, whereas other white girls were not being told that, they're being given options to keep their babies. She feels that's essential health care for black women.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she, I don't know, I guess she wants other black women to suffer like she did. If we solved racism tomorrow, Dyer, then, what would these people do all day?
How would they make money off of racism?
How would they make money off of racism? So, this kind of reminds me of like situations like with sexual assault. So you had something like a Ghislaine Maxwell. Her and some of the other girls were recruiting more girls into the same bad situation. And Dyer, you brought up a similar point with pedophiles before the show.
It's in the clip notes.
Oh, you do? Oh, do you want to say that now? Or
Sure.
So around?
You may, yes. Though we could probably just read through because it's kind of like logically leads to the other.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I'll just start reading it then. All right. So for her entire adult life, Cori Bush has known that Planned Parenthood believed black girls had a unique need for abortion, that they would hard sell specifically black women on using abortion rather than other options like adoption or keeping the child, and using scare tactics like, oh, you won't be able to go to college, it's going to destroy your life, you won't be able to become a Democrat Marxist advocate. Wouldn't that be terrible? She knew that Planned Parenthood would only provide the option of abortion if no other options, even if other options were available. And she knew that Planned Parenthood would not stop the process if a woman decided against the abortion mid-abortion. Yes, showing that women do not, in fact, have a choice. Let's see here. So she also then went on to advocate for abortion rights with no limitations for her entire adult life up until that point. She's aided Planned Parenthood in their mass genocide of babies, targeting of black babies specifically, and the rape of women's bodies.
You may feel tempted, knowing all this, to feel sorry for her after hearing her story. It really is horrific. If that were happening to someone important to you, that would be terrifying, right? That's that Planned Parenthood would force someone to have an abortion. A terrible story. And it might make you feel sorry for Cori Bush. But you should feel as sorry for her as you would for a pedophile who themselves were raped as a child, but then went on to rape multiple other children. That is to say, you should not feel sorry for her at all. She uniquely knows how evil the abortion industry is. She was a victim of it. She suffered the consequences of the abortion industry, and yet she still supported it. Just like, yes, a would-be pedophile may have been a victim at one point where they were a child and they were abused, but then them having a unique knowledge of how bad that is, how horrible it is to be the victim, they then go on and victimize others. That is a unique level of evil. See, when you have someone who's incompetent, like say someone who's retarded and doesn't understand the consequence of their actions, doesn't realize the evil of their actions. If you have a guy who's retarded and who ends up sexually abusing a child, yes, the action's terrible. Yes, what they did was horribly wrong and should be avoided and should be stopped. But they are less evil because that person did not understand. Like there's one story I know of a guy who was like mentally 5 years old his entire life. So he didn't understand what he was doing was wrong. But that's different from someone who's fully mentally capable and understands what they're doing is wrong and then doing it anyways. Is a next level of evil. Both things are wrong, but her being a victim first and then choosing to victimize. She helped victimize many thousands of people. She's helped support a literal genocide of black babies. And she did that knowing that it was based on racism. She did that knowing that it was violating women's rights and they truly did not have a choice and they're being manipulated into taking these options, this path. She knew all this and she supported it anyways. That is a special level of evil. And no, I do not feel sorry for her because she is the villain.
Yes, and not only all of that, she used that to gain. She did all that knowing, and she used it to gain political power. Like, that's particularly evil.
She got political office over the death of many black babies. That was the cost for her power.
And, we can only hope one day that cognitive dissonance collapses and she has a full realization of what she's done and that it crushes her.
Yes.
Alrighty.
So next story is A1.
Yes.
Thank Biden.
Yes. If you've got an emotional problem that you feel you need support on, well, Joe's got just the bud for you.
Yes. So Biden announced this week that he plans to pardon all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. This will affect around 100 or so prisoners in federal prisons, but will remove criminal records from thousands of individuals who've been charged with only simple possession in the past.
That's weird. Because if you clear charges of a federal crime, you regain the right to vote. And it's 3.5 weeks before this isn't related, is it, Dyer? There's no way it's related to midterms, right?
Actually, exactly that. So the reason for it was it seemed to Biden that unjust that people who had simple marijuana possession should be denied from being able to vote or get certain jobs. So the problem is that you very rarely are only charged with simple marijuana possession at the federal level. Usually, if you're being charged federally for marijuana possession, it's a crime added on to other crimes related to it, like being a dealer or a violent crime done in relation to having marijuana, and it's like something tagged on, or it's something that they plead to as a lesser crime. So you may have been selling and may also have been a assaulted a police officer, but you pled down to simple possession to get a lower
and
sentence.
it's not that I mean, maybe some, but it's not the judges are just doing this out of the kindness of their heart of like, oh, well, we'll just give you a lesser charge. It's usually because the more advanced charge of drug trafficking or of assault and battery or of murder or of whatever is usually a little harder to prove. And so if the prosecutors are for sure that they can get you on possession, which they know is like 1 to 5 years, they might just go with that as a lesser charge rather than attempting and failing to charge you with something heavier. And so that's usually why possession seems to be kind of the default clearinghouse of charges for things that are a little worse than that.
So what this appears to be is a naked attempt to remove criminal records from a lot of people who have sometimes violent crimes they committed and had served time for, but had pled down to the lesser charge of simple possession, and trying to return their ability to vote right before an election. I guess that Biden has correctly identified that one of his key constituents is criminals. That's evident by the left-wing DAs routinely releasing criminals back on the streets to victimize people. They definitely are the party of criminals, so it makes sense. They probably got a few extra thousand votes by removing those criminal records. Now, that doesn't mean that I actually I think that marijuana is something that you should go to jail for. I think that it really doesn't matter to me what you put in your body. I just am commenting on the naked political decision that Biden's made because he doesn't probably care either way. He just wants the votes.
Yeah, he could have done this at any point in his presidency, and this could have been done at any point during Obama's presidency or Bush's president, anybody's. And the reason why it's happening now is because the numbers for midterms are not looking very good, and Joe's looking for anything at this point, anything at all.
Any kind of win.
Anything. Literally anything. And he's really running out of levers to pull. And this is the big one. I wouldn't be surprised if before the presidential election, I don't know that he's got enough time to do it now. I wouldn't be surprised if before the presidential election you see some kind of maybe in like September or August before 2024 that you would see him do some kind of like mass amnesty for illegal immigrants again and giving them the right to vote.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that. This is like a test run for can you in bulk get more voters on the rolls by expunging reasons that they can't vote. And this is just the start. This will be just the start. Next you'll see, assault and battery, there's too many people in jail for assault and battery. Like, well, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Well, I don't know. That's what the Democrats like. So
Yeah. So there actually is a more responsible way of doing this that I actually would have advocated for a Republican president to do, and that is not just say everyone who has simple possession should be released or have their records expunged. I would say you should allow a review of cases to identify people who were only charged initially with simple possession so that you are eliminating anyone who may have had violent crimes that were pled down from.
So what's your over-under on let's say by the end of the year that one of these people murders somebody?
Pretty good chance.
I would say within the next year, by the end of next year, I would say probably 100% chance that one of these people murders someone else. And it'll be Joe Biden's signature that is the reason why that person died. Almost a guarantee. I mean, you have gangbangers who are suspected of many violent crimes and murders that the police and federal agents didn't have enough evidence on, but they definitely could prove simple possession because when they were rolled up, they had marijuana on them. There's a lot of the ones that have federal attention have that attention because they're involved in something a lot bigger than just having marijuana in their pocket. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess good for Joe. He's going to get more, a couple thousand more voters in November. I guess we'll see if that can override our next story, which is that gas, you may have noticed, spiked by like 65 cents this week. There's a reason why. You ready for the next story?
Yes. Ready for the next story. So,
Alrighty.
OPEC.
All right. So OPEC this week said, "Let's go, Brandon," and Brandon responded with, "Let's go, Armageddon." Oh no. Go,
Oh, no.
Armageddon. The 13-nation OPEC group, which has a logo which is really hard to look at and I hate. Have you seen the OPEC logo? It's awful.
No.
It's all. Look it up. It's awful. So the OPEC group, which is 13 nations plus 10 allies, led by Moscow, kind of like a oil UN, agreed.
Oh God, what is that?
Yeah, I know, it's awful, isn't it? Let me look it up for us real quick. You keep reading. I'll look it up for the group here.
Fair enough. Okay. Led by Moscow, agreed at a meeting in Vienna to slash output of oil by 2 million barrels per day, starting in November. This should not be shocking to anyone. For the first reason is because, of course, Russia, which is one of the biggest members of OPEC, they will use whatever lever of influence to pressure and bend NATO and the U.S. to their will, and this is the biggest lever they have. And there's also a lever that Biden handed them. By cutting our own domestic production of oil and halting new pumping on federal territories and halting the Keystone Pipeline, these decisions by Biden it was basically the same as giving Putin the sword with which he will strike us.
You're not suggesting that like completely turning off our own domestic oil production and being completely reliant on our enemies for oil production. You're not suggesting that made us like, I don't know, like a tactical blunder.
Vastly weaker. No, it's far beyond a tactical blunder. He has basically doomed many Americans to suffering because all the rise in prices from oil and then all the related prices to products being more expensive because of the cost of oil, that's all because of Biden. That is a direct result of the policies ensuring that people will have trouble feeding their families, will be forced into poverty by these actions. And it hurts us strategically because now they have us by the balls. We have to worry about taking military action and doing whatever we need to around the world because they can shut down our economy because we are dependent on the oil from other countries.
Yes. Alrighty, so where did we get to? Did you see how awful that logo is?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, do you see how it's like got like an E and a C and the P in it, and it's just like it's awful.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, so you got the circle's an O, and then the circle on the top right is a P because it's got the stick on it, and the circle at the bottom left is an E, and the circle on the bottom right is a C. Do you see it? Do you love it?
Well, yeah, I kind of see it now. It kind of looks like the one of the bad guy factions from Star Trek, though, the bottom corner. But why would if the picture says no? So if the picture says if the picture says OPEC, then why does it also say OPEC? Like, if you just stick with one, make the picture say OPEC, or just have the words OPEC. Don't put both. It's stupid. I don't like it. Please remove it. Your entire organization is irrelevant because of your bad graphical design. So some other members of OPEC are literal enemies like Iran and Libya. So it's no surprise that they would agree to cut our supplies if they were giving us any supplies at all, which they're not. The most damaging member, however, to agree to those terms was Saudi Arabia, who we were pretty on friendly terms with under Trump, because we kind of were buying good favor for them. Trump had agreed to sell the Saudis weapons and join them on their sanctions of Iran. Now, joining them with sanctions of Iran was something that was in our best interest, so it wasn't us doing a favor for Saudi. Giving them weapons was us doing them a favor, trying to curry favor so that they would give us good prices on oil and do what we wanted with oil and disregard OPEC's overall disdain for us.
Were we unloading F-35s on them too?
Yes, we had agreed them to sell them terrible planes.
Not even like the regular bad F-35s. They were stripped down F-35s.
Yeah.
Like they're even worse.
Yeah.
The budget models.
Even worse version. The budget 35. So, yeah, Saudis aren't great. They're also evil dictators too. But we did need to use them for our national interest, and they were willing to be bought with selling them some trashy weapons. So you see, the Saudis and Iranians don't like each other. They probably believe each other to be the wrong kind of Muslim. We don't know which side is the little boy raping type or which side is the little girl raping type. All we know is that they are not the same type and they don't like each other. So when Biden got into office, he ended the heavy sanctions against Iran and refused to sell weapons to the Saudis. These actions resulted in the Saudis being willing to join with OPEC in essentially applying economic sanctions to the entirety of the West.
Yeah, because for some reason, Joe and Obama, this is Obama's legacy, is the Iran nuclear deal. For some reason, they are just dead set, obsessed with allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon just on their, like, on a timetable that we all agree to. Whereas no agreement would mean no nuclear weapon. And Joe's like, well, to prevent them to getting a nuclear weapon, we need to make sure that they're on a path to get a nuclear weapon in the next 5 years. And like, that's basically the Iran nuclear deal in a nutshell. And the Saudis are like, no. And everyone else with a brain is like, no, that's a bad idea. And Joe's like, well, if we don't give them a nuke in 5 years, you know, they might develop one on their own in 15. So gotta make sure we do it on our terms. And the Saudis don't like that. So also insane. The Saudis financed 9/11. So boo. Alrighty.
Yes.
Oil prices.
Not friends.
Yes. They financed Bushes putting bombs in the pillars. So the oil prices are one of the biggest economic factors that inflate the cost of everything. And is something that has an immediate and punishing effect on Americans. Again, you may be wondering why you drove past the gas station on Monday and it was like $3.45, and then you drove past it on Tuesday and it was $4. Well, you can thank Joe Biden for that. He's doing a great job, guys.
Let's thank him.
Let's see here. So Biden, seeing how gas prices are doing, and how it's going to be politically damaging to him and the Democrats, which is just incredible that this is going to happen. I mean, what an October surprise is a 60% price jack in gas. Great job. Let's see here. So he has attempted to reduce the price of gas by releasing even more oil from the U.S. Strategic Reserve. This thing will actually just be dry by the end of his administration in 2024. We are going to be like beyond screwed, like really, really bad screwed on that. I mean, it will probably take something like 10 years to refill what he has used up in just a year so far. I mean, really in the last 6 months. I mean, that is just actually criminal. I mean, he should be put on trial for what he did. I mean, I would imagine, Dyer, that there's probably a process by which a general that's in command of like, you know, some kind of military operation, even though they're in like full command of that operation, if they do something that's like, I don't know, like ordering everybody to like destroy like plant C4 on all of your equipment and just destroy it. I'd imagine that that's not okay, right? Like that's probably like something that could be punished because they're clearly
court-martialed for that.
Yeah, they're clearly doing something that is egregious to security, like what Joe Biden's doing right now. I really think it's hard to talk about it every week because it's just, you know, it's the same thing. But like, I don't know that it can be understated how bad it is that Joe Biden's consuming that much oil out of the strategic reserve. He's got something like 200 million barrels out of it already. And that was with it at, I think, about 600 million barrels. I mean, he's used about a third of it in about the last 9 months. At this rate, like I said, it will be drip dry by the end of 2024. That is that is treason. That is high
and
treason.
what has gained, right? So not only has he reduced our strategic reserve and our ability to respond to acute disasters and make war if necessary to defend our country, the resulting benefit of that oil has been a drop in the bucket, almost literally.
Yeah,
it's not, almost nothing.
Yeah, they were able to back the average gas price from about $4.15. The average gas price was up around, I think, $5 at peak. And they were able to back the average price down about $1, maybe a little bit more. My area is always a little bit cheaper compared to the national average, so I'm a little pampered. But yeah, they were able to back it off by about $1.
For how long, you know?
Yeah, at the expense of 1 million barrels per day out of our strategic reserve, they were able to back it off by about $1 for about 6 months. And that's not even over yet. And the Saudis just basically undid all of that with a word and a wave at their meeting this week. Let's see here. So Joe Biden is also going, so in response to the Saudis saying that they're going to be reducing their supply of oil, Joe's going to be releasing even more oil from the strategic reserve. At some point, he's also going to butt up against the ability of the strategic oil reserve to actually emit oil. It can only emit about 4 million barrels per day, and he's already at over 1 million barrels per day that he's taking out of it. So at a certain point, there's not enough pumps to take it out of the reserve. So I don't know what they're going to do when that happens. Let's see here. So the reserves, okay, so he has done this several times over the last year, resulting in a 30% reduction in the total reserve. So he's dropped the reserves by 30% in the last 12 months.
And they were already low.
Yeah.
They were already low, and Trump was trying to refill them, and they were blocking him refilling the reserve back when it was $15 a barrel.
Well, there was a point during COVID where it was negative dollars per barrel. I mean, we could have been filling it up then.
Yep.
All right. This reserve is important for national security and dealing with acute national disasters. In response to OPEC's 2 million barrels a day reduction, Joe Biden is returning to the strategic reserves again and releasing an additional 10 million barrels. I guess we'll find out if those are going to China or to Burisma. Or to anybody that Hunter Biden's associated with. That'll be interesting.
So 10 million more barrels released, but they're reducing it 2 million per day. That's 5 days worth of the reduction, basically.
Yeah, that's not even going to get him past early voting.
Yeah, that's just a drop in the bucket.
So
that really help.
My personal opinion on this is. I have the Saudis cut at 10 million barrels per day. I would rather, and this is not the same thing as what Bill Maher had said a few years ago, where he was hoping for a recession just to punish Trump voters and to get Trump out of office. I do hope that the gas price continues to spike. I hope it goes to $6 before the election, because the reason why it's not $6 right now is only because Joe Biden has stolen from the strategic reserve for political purposes, to cover up his bad politics. His actual politics, if allowed to hit the free market and be priced correctly without him pilfering the national reserves, it would be at $5.50. It would be at $6. And so if something external happens to cause gas to jump to what its price should be under Joe Biden's policies, and the American voter reacts to that, that is my preference. I don't care how it happens, because it's going to go up that high after the election anyways, because after the election, there's really no purpose in Joe continuing to drain the reserves. You're stuck with him for another 2 years. So even if it's the Saudis, I think America should be feeling the pain for the next month before the election, because they're going to be feeling it after the election anyways. You might as well feel it before and have a chance to vote in new policy, rather than allowing Joe to continue hiding it while stealing from us, and then it just comes back anyways later on. But at that point, you've already cast your vote, and oops-a-daisy, you voted for Joe Biden. So this isn't like the same thing as where Bill Maher a few years ago said he was hoping for a recession just because he didn't like Trump. Trump's policies were working well for everybody, and a recession wasn't going to happen. We weren't in good times because Trump was stealing from the American people. We were in good times because Trump's policies were good. Joe's policies are bad, and the only reason why we're not in worse times is because he's stealing from the reserves to try to backstop his bad policy. And anything that happens to reveal that bad policy for the economic disaster that it is, I think that's a positive, and I think the American people do need to feel some pain because it's not fair that Joe just gets to hide all of that by stealing from the reserves.
I don't want any Americans to be victims of their government's policies. What they're doing right now, though, is they're still going to be victims of a government policy that's going to crush them economically, but they're adding the additional injury of damaging our ability to respond to natural disasters, our ability to respond to attacks, our ability to, use our military and have fuel to support those actions. That is an additional injury, and that's just being done to hide temporarily the effects of their policies for political gain, so they're going so they can maintain power, so they can maintain those policies that are going to harm you longer.
Yeah, so the American people are going to feel the pain eventually anyways. My preference is just that we feel it before the election rather than just feeling it after the election. Whereas the difference with Trump's policy is there was never, as long as Trump's policy stayed in effect, there was never any pain coming. It was just good policy, and the economy was rip-roaring. Right. Under Joe, though, they're able to hide it, but they won't be able to hide it forever, and they will probably stop feeling the need to hide it after they get your vote in November. So
to be fair, they're very badly hiding it right now, but they are they're mitigating the pain a little bit from what it could be, and it's going to. We know from their policies, as soon as they stop mitigating it, as soon as you've got your vote cast, they're going to let the full weight of these policies hit us, and it's going to be far worse for far longer if we don't get someone in there who can reverse these policies.
Yep. Alrighty. You got more to say?
So Biden's next idea was to send diplomats to the communist hellhole that is Venezuela to beg them. Yes, we're going to a third-rate dictator to ask them to sell us oil. This is kind of ironic because we originally stopped buying oil and sanctioned Venezuela because of their human rights violations, them rigging elections, having a dictator put into office who took over their Congress, and basically he's now a dictator with no term limits and no Congress. The Congress he controls, and he also has been killing and jailing his political dissidents. So we sanctioned them for a reason, and now we're forced to go and beg them for oil because of Joe Biden's policies. That seems like a big step backwards.
Hey, nobody fucks with a Biden though.
Yeah, apparently Venezuela can because they've. But the problem is, we're not solving the problem. All we're doing is taking the levers of pressure over us, taking it from one dictator to another. We're giving. All we're doing is allowing a different dictator to apply pressure on us. They're still going to be able, now Venezuela will be able to raise prices anytime they're mad at us, just like Russia can.
Yeah, and I don't know, I guess I'd rather have the Saudis because as much as I hate them for 9/11. Yeah, they're at least a relatively modern country. So there are levers that we can push back on them because their society has a comfort and technology and civilization level that they're accustomed to now, whereas Venezuela does not. So there's not a lot that we can do to push back on Venezuela. They're already at rock bottom. All the cats are gone because they've eaten them. But there are some things that could still be in a roundabout way done to Saudi Arabia, which would cause their population to be less luxurious and make them maybe put some pressure on their government. So both are bad situations. We should just be drilling our own frickin' oil, you idiot, Joe. But as for, I don't know, I guess choose your dictator, I don't know, I guess in a weird way, I guess the Saudis are a better choice. So even Joe, with the best of a bad situation, which he caused himself, he's still making the wrong choice.
Yep. Next story.
Why don't we have kill switches in those F-35s we sold Saudi Arabia? Why isn't it just like, how's about you pump the oil or your birds just fall out of the sky? How about that? How about them apples?
I think they would want to reserve that kind of option, whether or not it does or does not exist, when they're flying out to attack us.
Yeah, but they never get launched to fly out to attack us if just all of a sudden they detonate on the tarmac.
See, you don't want to give them the clue that all their planes have that vulnerability, because then they, we will not find that out.
Yeah, but if they have no planes because there was a vulnerability, then it's irrelevant that they know about the vulnerability.
You gotta be tactical when you deploy. Like, you don't want to just use your virus you have on the enemy's infrastructure until it's actually necessary to do something with it. You don't just preemptively do it. Then you're wasting opportunity. You're wasting your bullets early.
What if we nuke them?
I think you're missing the point.
This is strategery, Dyer. You're a boots on the ground kind of guy. You don't understand how strategery works. So
strategery, yeah.
Yes. Gotta say that for the men in the high castle there. So.
All right, next story.
Alrighty. Well, speaking of presidents, we got a little some kind of a photo leaked from the future of Ron DeSantis standing in front of a presidential seal, or standing behind a podium with a presidential seal on the front of it, and giving a speech. And it was a pretty interesting looking picture. A lot of people chimed in that, hey, wouldn't this be nice? And I think it would be nice. And this is my favorite shot, is you have DeSantis there looking very natural in front of the presidential seal there. And you got Joe Biden just, I don't even know what that look is. Just, hey, who took my podium? And also Joe can't be bothered to put on a freaking suit jacket. Come on. DeSantis has a jacket on. Joe just looks like he's a volunteer crew, just like they found him, or I'm like an old person they rescued from an attic after the flooding. So yeah, there was a lot of comments on Twitter that
he looks like DeSantis' intern. He looks like
basically
intern with a little booklet there.
Basically. So why how did this even happen? So Joe was down in Florida this week. I guess the political wonk take on it is that Joe's just trying to get a little bit of the star power from DeSantis, because right now, as hard as the mainstream media tried, DeSantis did a stellar job of handling the hurricane. It was a terrible situation. It was a much stronger hurricane than anybody wanted. It hit in a weird area. The models were a little bit off, and so they weren't sure what was going to go on. But it would appear that DeSantis did a absolutely fantastic job of managing all of the resources and ensuring that the loss of life was as minimized as possible. He's done a great job of working with the federal government to try to marshal the resources that are owed to that state as part of the union. And he's just done a fantastic job of it. The mainstream media has done their best to try to pin him on making mistakes. However, he's been quick to catch them on that, saying, these weren't mistakes. These are what the model showed at the time. These are what your agency broadcast at the time. And so basically, every move along the way, he did a great job. And every move that the mainstream media tried to say he did a bad job on, he was able to show that he didn't do a bad job on. And the people of Florida love him for this. There's actually some people who were being rescued who said, DeSantis is doing a great job. I'm gonna probably vote for him if he runs for president. And so that's been just kind of the universal understanding of how DeSantis did last week. And Joe wanted some of that to rub off on him, and so he went down and stood next to DeSantis. Presumably the podium that has a presidential seal on it was for Joe to speak at, and I believe he did speak at it for a little while. But DeSantis needed to speak as well, and seeing no other podiums, decided to step in front of the one with the presidential seal on it. It is believed that the staffers that made the decision to put the presidential seal on the podium and allow DeSantis such an opportunity were probably promptly executed in the Rose Garden following the situation, because by golly, that was a messaging mistake. I mean, gosh, have you ever seen such a messaging mistake? Allowing your opposition to stand in front of the presidential seal. And like I said, the commentary from social media and conservatives is, hey, he looks pretty natural behind that podium there. And I kind of hope that this is the shape of things to come. I hope that this is the vision of the future. And I think this probably will be a vision of the future. It almost looks like an inauguration, as the former president usually attends the inauguration. And it kind of looks like that. It kind of looks like Joe is passing the torch there. So, this could have been a picture from last week. It could have been a picture from 2 years from now. Who knows? Anything's possible. Though I think if it was, a picture from 2 years from now, I think Joe would be in a casket.
Because he's old, not because someone did something bad to him.
Probably because he got a COVID shot. So do you have anything else to say on DeSantis here?
I would really support him as president. Moving on to COVID shots.
Yeah, so also out of Florida this week. Florida, their Surgeon General, who's like the top doctor for Florida, he put out some guidance on the mRNA COVID vaccines. This is from October 7th, so like 2 days ago. He also tweeted about it, and Twitter deleted his tweet, and then undeleted his tweet, and then deleted his tweet again. And so depending on how, if you click on the tweet or see it as a retweet, you may or may not get to see the tweet. However, the tweet was just tweeting out links to the this publication that I'm about to read. This is what Dyer and I are about to read here is not the stated opinion of Direwolf Media, though we may share it. And we are just reading and not commentating on this publication from the Surgeon General of Florida. So this is like a doctor for the state of Florida, and this is what he wrote. So isn't Dyer and I saying this?
Opinion.
What's that?
We have no opinion. It's what the doctor said.
Yes, this is what the doctor said. And I believe YouTube guidance is to believe doctors, right? And trust the science and to...
Exactly.
Okay. So all of that settled. Here's what Florida's guidance on... This is what they published 2 days ago. So Florida Health, guidance for mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. Let's see here. So Florida continues to emphasize that healthcare providers review all data to evaluate risks and benefits unique to each patient when determining any healthcare services to provide, including the administration of COVID-19 vaccines containing messenger RNA, mRNA, which both the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines utilize. The Florida Department of Health conducted an analysis through a self-controlled case series, which is a technique originally developed to evaluate vaccine safety. This studied mortality risk following mRNA COVID-19 vaccination. This analysis found that there is an 84% increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related death in males 18 to 39 years old within 28 days following mRNA vaccination. Individuals with pre-existing cardiac conditions such as myocarditis and pericarditis should take particular caution when considering vaccination and discussing with their healthcare provider. I'm going to reread one of those sentences just in case you didn't hear it. This analysis found that there is an 84% increase in the incidence of cardiac-related death among males 18 to 39 years old within 28 days following mRNA vaccination. My goodness. Jesus Christ. That's like...
Jesus
Christ. Fuck. Oh, fuck.
Yikes. That's not great.
Yeah, yikes is so good. God. Oh, fuck. As such,
man.
I'm saying that because I stubbed my toe just now. Not reacting to what we're reading. I just I kicked my desk by accident. And
coincidence.
You know when you bump your knee on the bottom of your desk, you know how much that hurts. Yeah, that's why those expletives just flew.
Also,
All
my
right.
chest hurts. All of a sudden.
Yeah. You know, they say Dyer's got a big heart, and they're not fucking kidding. He's triple boosted.
Oh.
Don't laugh too hard there. We don't want to excite your heart. As such, the press release continues after that whopper. As such, the Florida Department of Health has issued the following guidance. Based on currently available data, patients should be informed of the possible cardiac complications.
Sorry.
What's that?
They should be informed to run.
Yes, informed of the possible cardiac complications that can arise after receiving a mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. With a high level of global immunity to COVID-19, the benefit of vaccination is likely outweighed by this abnormally high risk of cardiac-related death among men in this age group. The state surgeon general now recommends that the state surgeon general now recommends against the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines for males ages 18 to 39 years old. And they put that in bold, so I'm going to read it again. The state surgeon general now recommends against the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine for males ages 18 to 39 years old.
Well,
Yikes.
Clearly this is misinformation, right?
Right. Well,
right. We can't. So
I think the problem is though is that this is coming from a doctor. So if you say it's misinformation, you're violating YouTube guidelines.
Fuck. Okay, it's not misinformation. We
Which
believe it uncritically.
Yeah, but now you're encouraging vaccine hesitancy, so that's also against.
I have no opinion on this matter.
Dyer is also continuously stubbing his toe and just saying random words. Dyer's heart increased by 20% in size last week. He can't be held responsible for what he's saying. Individuals and healthcare providers should also be aware that this analysis found that males over the age of 60 had a 10% increase risk of cardiac-related death within 28 days of mRNA vaccination. Non-mRNA vaccines were not found to have these increased risks among any population. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Floridians are encouraged to discuss all the potential benefits and risks of receiving mRNA COVID-19 vaccines with their healthcare provider. The risk associated with mRNA vaccination should be weighed against the risk associated with COVID-19 infection. The Department of Health continues to stand by its guidance for pediatric COVID-19 vaccines issued in March 2022, which recommends against the use in healthy children and adolescents 5 to 17 years of age. This now includes recommendations against COVID-19 vaccination among infants and children under 5 years old, which has since been issued under the Emergency Use Authorization Act. So in Florida, they are recommending that if you are under the age of 39 at all, you should not be getting an mRNA vaccine. Yikes. And why are they recommending that? Because their analysis found an 84% increase in the incidence of cardiac-related death among males 18 to 39 within 28 days of receiving a vaccination. So if you take like a group of like, okay, so to try to like, I don't know, like illustrate this for you. So basically you would take a group of like 1,000 males who weren't being vaccinated, and you would just follow them for 28 days. And like, likely some of them are going to die during that time for various reasons. And basically what they found is that, like, let's say, and I don't know if this is what the actual data is, I'm just using this for illustrative purposes. Let's say 10 males in that group of 1,000 died of a heart attack who didn't get the vaccination. Then they took another group of 1,000 males that did get a vaccination, and they followed them for 28 days. What they're saying is that 18 of them if 10 in the first group died of a heart attack, then 18 in the second group died of a heart attack or a heart-related issue, when you would have expected it to be just 10. But I guess like you're basically almost doubling your likelihood of having some kind of cardiac-related death incident in the next 30 days if you get a vaccine that's got mRNA in it. That's wild. If we are still on YouTube, and I'm not getting my door busted down by the FBI right now, I don't know what's going on. But Christ on a cross, that is a big number. I mean, Jesus. Like, that's high. Do you think that's high, Dyer?
I think it's high enough that it is shocking that there's only Florida, I guess, cares.
Yeah, I would love
no
to
other
see...
state care other people.
Yeah, so this came out late this week. This was on Friday, so there hasn't really been a lot of time for like a media cycle to kind of tear it apart because it's the weekend. I want to see next week. I want to see why it's wrong. Like show me the counterfactual. Show me the counter, because they're not going to have one, right? There's not going to be a counter study on this. There's not going to be anything other than just like, oh, it's safe. But we don't know that it's safe because they skipped a bunch of trials because it was emergency use authorization. But there's really no reason for it to be emergency use authorization anymore when Joe Biden declared the pandemic over. And so maybe we should be going back and doing some of these studies that we didn't have time to do the first time. And maybe it's a problem. This does not show... and it is also important context. I wish they'd included it in here. It was a mistake for them not to include it in here. Is what was the death from COVID rate in both of these groups?
We did a story on that last, or like a couple of shows ago, and I forget what the number was, but basically it was far fewer people were hospitalized for COVID than were hospitalized for symptoms from the vaccine.
Yeah.
It was like 90%.
And it may even, based off the death rate for under 30 males, it's possible that both of these groups, nobody died of COVID. It's possible that it wasn't a measurable number. I guess we'd have to find... Maybe I can click on this. The analysis.
Well, the one I was talking about wasn't even deaths. It was just hospitalized for. You were like 9% more likely to be hospitalized for the symptoms from the vaccine than you were for the symptom from the disease itself.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, yeah, but you're not being hospitalized if you just drop dead because your heart exploded. You just.
They included that too.
I guess they do. I didn't read through like they do have a link to the study right up. We probably don't have time to go through that, but
no, not now.
It's available if you like it. So President DeSantis and also Florida not recommending vaccination if you are young and healthy and would also like to not die if your heart exploding.
We didn't say that. Other people say it.
Yes. Some people say that. I wouldn't say that. But some people might say that your heart will beat out of your chest like your Wile E. Coyote and just detonate.
And we've been removed.
Yes.
Anyways, I think that's our last story, yeah?
No, there's like 2 more. It's a big story.
Oh, shit, there is.
Yeah. What?
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, just because you didn't write them doesn't mean I didn't write stories.
They don't. I was surprised. I was like, wow, we were like way ahead of schedule.
So Dyer will write the first group of stories, and I write the second group of stories, and inevitably he will just assume I didn't write any stories.
Sorry, we got to a blank. We got a blank story, so I think
exist. Yeah, that's true. It was a potential. This is a short story. It's not really a story even. It's just kind of funny. So
it is hilarious though.
We referenced this last week that John Fetterman, who is, I don't know, in just the weirdest, most pathetic race I've ever seen with Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania for Senate. It was mentioned last week that Fetterman at one point in his history pulled a shotgun on a black man. And I guess the internet is forever and dug up the local media reporting at the time that it happened. And this clip is, well, I loved it. Hopefully you'll love it too. Let's watch.
Mayor John Fetterman says he rushed his son inside, called 911, and took off in his truck after a masked man in black he saw running. But Chris Mayeras, the man Fetterman confronted, turns out to be an innocent jogger who police say had no weapon.
There wasn't any assault rifle shots. It was bottle rockets behind the library.
Mayor Fetterman did have a weapon.
A 20 gauge shotgun under the back seat of my truck, which I pulled out and I showed to just say, look, we're going to wait here and we're going to get this all sorted out when the police arrive.
Mayeras and the mayor tell very different stories. He says Fetterman
followed me into North Braddock and pulled a shotgun and aimed it at my chest.
Did you point the shotgun at him?
No, I did not. I pointed it, away so that he would see that I was armed, but I did not point it at him. In fact, I didn't even have a round chambered or remove the safety at that point.
For both men, it was frightening.
What?
North Braddock's police chief says his officers tell him.
Yeah, did you catch that too? How he said that he didn't even have a round chambered? Like, that's not how I would describe using a shotgun.
That's not how I describe it either.
Yeah, like, okay, so like, I mean, maybe it was a pump action, and I guess I don't know that I would describe it like that, but I guess I don't personally have a shotgun, and I'm not super familiar with shotguns as I am with other kinds of guns that I do have. But like, I don't know that I would describe break action as chambered and not. Well, I mean, they would always be chambered, right? So like, if you're in a situation, you've got a break action, you're gonna like, it's either gonna already have rounds in it or you're gonna put the rounds in it. You're not just gonna point an empty shotgun at somebody. And if it's a pump action, I mean, whether it's chambered or not is a little bit irrelevant because you can pump it pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any other comments on that? Do you have more familiarity with shotguns?
Not really. I would never refer to it as having it chambered.
No, I would if it was a pistol.
Anyways,
if it was a pistol, I would.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a little bit weird, which makes me think that like he has a shotgun, but he doesn't really know anything about guns. He just has one, and I guess that's how, like, because that's how a person who's not familiar with shotguns, like maybe me, would describe it, though even I would not describe it like that.
Or remove the safety at that point.
For both men, it was frightening. North Braddock's police chief says his officers tell him the shotgun incident was over when they arrived. Mayeras says that's not true. The police tried to laugh it off.
I mean, there's a mayor with a shotgun and 6 other cops surrounded me. What else can I do but this?
I believe I did the right thing, but I may have broken the law during the course of it, and I'm certainly not above the law if I did. But what I did in a split second, and out of concern as the father and the mayor.
He's trying to make it like it's okay. He's trying to justify what he did. I mean, you're the mayor of Braddock in North Braddock with a shotgun.
He was mayor when this happened?
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, because he was mayor for like years, like a decade or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that's basically all he did was he just would like.
Let me get this straight, all right? So he saw a guy. He's obviously cold weather. He's wearing cold weather running gear, right?
Yeah.
A guy running with a face mask on, and that's all he needed to think that his community was in danger. He had to run someone down with a truck with a shotgun.
That's all I mean, this is that story of who's the other quote unquote jogger that
story is different.
Yeah, I know
that
it is, but it's basically like if that story was real, it's this story. Like this is the story of a real black jogger being traced down by some thug in a pickup truck and having a shotgun pointed at him. This is like the real version of that story. And surprise, surprise, it was a Democrat, not a Republican who did it.
Yeah. So the other story you're referring to, they had that same
Ahmaud Arbery. That's what it was.
Yeah. That story. There actually had been someone who fit the description who had robbed that house under construction multiple times, and they had him running from where the property was. So they had circumstantial evidence that he may have been a criminal beyond him just running. Right. In this case, he was running through a neighborhood and had done nothing fishy.
Yeah, and the Ahmaud Arbery was wearing like construction boots and jeans to go quote unquote jogging 10 miles away from his house.
Right.
This poor guy, he actually is in running attire for cold weather. And like he just has this insane Democrat chasing him down with a shotgun saying, "Get back on the plantation." Like, my gosh. Well,
wow.
I don't know. I mean, if that's who Pennsylvania Democrats want to represent them, I will not be surprised.
Yeah, so take that, a obvious racist who's dangerous and armed, add in brain damage, and that's your mayor.
Yeah, basically. At this point, it's not like, oh, the Democrats are the real racists. I think it's just like, I don't know, it's like when you're doing tug of war and you just like let go a little bit and like let the other side just kind of pull back real quick and fall down. I think it's kind of like that, where it's just like, yeah, like I'm not surprised that like Democrats are racist. Like, not like, don't make it a point where it's like, oh my gosh, like, did you know Democrats are the real racists? Just be like, yeah, like, I mean, obviously the Democrats are racist. Like, everybody knows that. Like,
they're the party of racism.
Yeah, let the person who you're talking to, like, don't approach them as like, oh, did you know the Democrats are actually the real racist ones? Just approach them as like, oh yeah, like, I mean, like, obviously Democrats are racist. Like, everybody knows that. Like, let them be the ones to try to argue against it when there's like, you don't need to argue it to them. It's self-evident. Let them argue against it.
Someone tells you they're going to vote for a Democrat. You say, why do you want to vote for the racists?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize you were racist. Sense. I didn't realize you were a white supremacist. That's weird.
It's a little awkward. I think I can't be around you right now. I don't support racism. I'm sorry, I'm surprised you would vote for that.
Someone who supports racism is our next story.
Yes, actually.
Oh, I forgot.
Oh my God.
I did have the tweet from... Oh, this was the tweet from the Florida Surgeon General for the last story. Sorry, I forgot. So, yeah, this was hard to find because, like I said, Twitter, like, deleted it, and then they undeleted it, and then they redeleted it, and then I think that they undeleted it again. So depending on where you clicked on it, the Twitter servers were having a really hard time trying to decide if they were going to show you the tweet or if they were going to show you tweet not found, which I got both of multiple times. So this tweet's very elusive. Should be an NFT. Alrighty, so Kanye West is he's our last story for the night, and Kanye West is our the most average walkaway that Dyer and I have ever seen. Everything that I've ever said about walkaways, Kanye fits it to a T. He's nothing special. He's just the most average version of it that we've ever seen. So Kanye was in the news quite a bit this week. And while Direwolf Media did our best to not care at all, the rest of conservative media apparently just can't get enough of their token pro-life black man. We can see in the picture on the left here, on the screen here, the picture on the left here is how the week started, and we can see on the picture on the right how the week ended. So on the left, I think that was on Monday, White Lives Matter t-shirts, and then on the right, Kanye posted this on Twitter last night at 11:55 p.m. So this just happened. Quote, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." Oof.
What the fuck?
The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew. Also, you guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. Oh boy. Oh no.
Oh no. Oh my God. So it's been a few years now since Kanye announced that he'd found Jesus. I guess Jewish Jesus. And that he
was
Jesus
now Jewish, you dork.
I know, but they believe it's a different, you know what I mean?
I know.
They don't believe that, she's white. The Jews and the Protestants have a different opinion on Jesus.
And Jews.
And that he was going, and Jews, and that he was now going to live a devout Christian, as a devout Christian in the service of God. And in that time, there have been no shortage of conservative politicians and commentators hailing this as a major victory for the culture war. And maybe it was. I don't think so. But conservative commentators were not satisfied with mere conversion. They wanted to tokenize, to idolize Kanye.
They wanted a token to idolize, and Kanye was just such a token to direct all of their attention to. You've heard what's that?
Sorry. So this it's a huge mistake to take someone who just turned to conservatism, the party, the tribe, because they were threatened by the left, and they don't come with any kind of experience or principles. They're just coming to our side. Yes, I'm glad they're now on our side temporarily, but you don't look at them as some sort of leader or as a example of our opinions. You can't draw them and say, hey, this is the example of the new conservative party. Kanye West is an example of it. No, Candace Owens and Kanye West are not an example of the conservative party. They might be temporarily aligned with us, but they don't believe in the same things as us. They come from the left. They still have the leftist principles, just like Fox has talked about, their walkaways.
Yes. So you heard from many others that over the years, and especially this week, that Kanye may have a lot of wisdom to offer on the right because, one time he put on a red hat and he's not a fan of killing babies. But you've never heard that from us because one of Direwolf Media's most constant drumbeats is beware of the walkaways and the recent converts. And this week, while so many other conservative commentators were getting it wrong, Dyer and I were getting it right because we didn't have a show air this week.
Yeah, you probably saw we definitely talked about it, though. Yeah. You probably saw the pictures on the left this week. Kanye West and Candace Owens wearing White Lives Matter shirts. Ooh, so provocative. And honestly, who the fuck cares? Well, apparently a lot of people. And while just about every commentator you watched did a segment on Kanye this week, Tucker Carlson took home the grand prize with 2 full nights of his Kanye interview, where we learned a lot about Kanye and what he believes.
Yeah, and, this Tucker interview gained a lot of traction with conservative commentators, but when we watched it, we picked up on slightly different messages than what our peers apparently did. That message was that we picked up from Kanye was probably one of the most anti-Semitic things Dyer and I have ever seen. Not the most anti-Semitic, but it's certainly up there. And, I would hope that you all realize that Dyer and I do not throw around terms like anti-Semitic and racist without being able to back it up. So let's watch a little clip of Tucker's interview with Kanye here. Again, you're going to see this interview from Tucker probably in a good light be presented by many other conservative commentators over the next week. This is not going to be, because you're going to get that from everyone else. You come here to get something different, and this is that something different. So here is Kanye. He's talking about his relationship with the Trump family. And we'll let him just take it away. Take it away, Yeezy.
Very much a handler right then. They love to just look at me or look at Trump like we're so crazy and that they're the businessmen. So when I think about all of these things that Jared, somehow doesn't get enough credit for with his work, and what is it? His work in Israel or his work in Palestine? What is this? You know where he made these peace treaties? Where was that? Do you know the facts on this right here? So I'm like...
I think that was between Israel and some of the Arab nations.
I just think it was to make money. I don't know. Is that too heavy-handed to put in this platform?
No, that's your opinion. We're not in the censorship business.
Okay, thank you. And I just think that that's what they're about, is making money. I don't think that they have the ability to make anything on their own. I think they were born into money. And for me as a maverick.
Okay, so what was Kanye talking about there? He was talking about Jared Kushner and the Abraham Accords. So
is it a little rich for him to say that someone else who's born into money didn't ever create something? Because I'm very sure that Jared Kushner actually has done more for society and produced more things than Kanye has.
Well,
What has he done?
let's go down the list of things that Jared Kushner did just with the Abraham Accords. So Jared Kushner got Bahrain to agree to a peace deal with Israel. Jared Kushner helped negotiate Sudan and peace between Israel. He also got Morocco to agree to peace with Israel. And I would say probably the cherry on top there is that Jared Kushner also convinced the United Arab Emirates to agree to peace with Israel. Now, you might not think that that's a good thing. Now you might just think that that's a good thing, but Kanye knows the truth. You know, all of these countries, majority Muslim countries that just absolutely hate Israel, for the last 75 years, any little thing could have set off that region, and many times has. And now, Biden kind of screwed it all up. But under Trump, there was a several month-long period of time towards the end of the Trump administration where there was flights going from Israel to majority Islam nations that hadn't seen travel between their nations for a century, since before planes even existed, much less diplomatic relations, much less trade relations. And all of that made possible by the hard work, love him or hate him, Jared Kushner worked his ass off and forged peace in the Middle East. My goodness. Now, you might think that that's a good thing, peace in the Middle East. But Kanye knows the truth. He knows that those dirty, thieving, long-nosed Jews, because Jared Kushner is a Jew, that they'll do anything for a shekel, even something as dastardly as world peace. You know, a lesser mind might think the globalists and the military-industrial complex are engaging in war for profit. You know, a lot of people, a lot of lesser minds, they think that there's a war for profit conspiracy theory by the military-industrial complex. But Kanye, not Kanye, he knows the truth. See, he's a genius. He knows the truth. The real conspiracy isn't war for profit. The real conspiracy is peace for profit. That's right. Peace for profit. Something so diabolical that only one of those tricky Jews could have come up with it. One of those tricky Jews like Jared Kushner. How dare he?
You know, it's funny. Trump actually
you have
did.
to read this part first before you go into
Okay. All right. Now, obviously, Fox was being sarcastic. Oh, I get it. But it makes the point of how ridiculous what Kanye said is. Sorry about that.
Now
Jared
you can
Kushner
improv.
goes. Okay, cool. So the thing is, traditionally, war has been a vehicle for profit for political elites around the world. That is a known thing, and that is something that Biden's family and the Democrats and a lot of Republicans as well have benefited directly from, is investing in the military-industrial complex. Now, Trump is not directly benefiting, nor is Jared Kushner, from peace, but he has advocated that the people who are signing for peace, that they will benefit financially, and that's one of the reasons why one of the negotiating tactics he's used to get people to come together. It's why one way he tried negotiating with Kim Jong-un. He's saying, hey, if you can stop launching missiles and you can come closer to the West, you can be friends with us, we can make you a tourist place. We can bring lots of money to your country. We can make your country wealthy. We can, you can have all these nice things. You can make you more profit if you are willing to join the rest of the world and not be a violent, warmongering terrorist.
Yeah.
Right? So he actually is. He's wrong completely. Kanye's completely wrong in the way he's taking it. But one thing he is right about is that, yes, Trump is unique in trying to find a profitable outcome for the people involved in the peace deals through peace.
Well, and let's be blunt too. For the average person, peace is far more profitable than war. War is only profitable to political elites and corporate elites, especially in the military-industrial complex. For your regular average person and for the majority of companies in the economy, are small businesses. War is not profitable for them. Peace is profitable. So, yeah, I mean, okay, let's say Jared Kushner, he had this dastardly idea that peace might be profitable and it might make him more money. Wow, that's so evil. That's so evil that he would think that. No, I mean, I agree. I liked the idea that Trump and his family were able to negotiate peace in the Middle East because it would be more profitable for everybody. It would be more profitable for you as American citizens that now we're not trucking $760 billion a year into God knows what for the military industrial complex. I would much rather have the Middle East be stable. I would much rather have all of these nations that are constantly threatening to wipe Israel off the face of the map if instead of that, they've got trade deals and they're reliant on each other's trade deals, and they've got travel, and now their citizens are mixing and mingling and hopefully not terrorizing each other. But I would much rather have that because that is stability in that region that doesn't require the U.S. to backstop all the security in that region. If all of a sudden these countries are suddenly friendly with each other, or at least on speaking terms, because a lot of what America has to do over there is just mediate very basic inter-country politics because these countries don't talk to each other. They don't have any interaction with each other. They don't have any trade deals with each other. And so any kind of move over there is always walking on eggshells because at any moment, one of those nations, much more likely the Islamic nations, would snap. But if all of a sudden there's talks, there's discussion, there's trade, the ambassadors start getting to know each other, the people start getting to know each other. If all of a sudden there's a miscommunication about where a certain border boundary is or where someone's plane is flying or where somebody parked a tank at, if all of a sudden there's a misunderstanding, we don't have to go to DEFCON 3 for that. All of a sudden, well, you know, the ambassador knows the other ambassador. You can just give them a call like a normal country does, like normal civilized nations do. This was the beginning, the and again, Joe Biden destroyed all of it, but the Abraham Accords were, before they were destroyed, the foundation to what could have been the turning point to a millennia, 1,000 years of war in the Middle East. And there was finally a route, a very viable route forward. It's all gone now, but Trump and Jared Kushner did that. And if they did it for profit, I mean, great. If you do
you know what capitalism is, right? Making people do the right thing for profit.
Correct.
So the difference between what Biden and his ilk are doing by benefiting financially off of war and Jared Kushner being allegedly profiting from peace is who benefits. So in peace, it's the people of every country involved and the global community, that the individuals benefiting from open trade that benefit. It is not, the elites at the top that are benefiting from open trade.
But not to interrupt you, it's also the American people. The fight. I mean,
that's who I'm referring to.
Yeah, for better or worse, I mean, it's the demographic of people, and it's been stated that it's racist because the military is pulling in black people to go fight in white men's wars and stuff like that. But it's typically been said, the military comes from the lower income class, from minority groups, and isn't that so terrible that we're sending them off to die? Well, they don't got to go die now. They don't have to go die if we've got peace there. So everybody, even the American people, the people that Kanye should supposedly be representing, they're all massively benefiting from this.
War means the reduction in food production. War means the rising of prices of gasoline and natural gas, and the restriction of supplies, the waste of resources. The spilling of blood, the waste of our blood and treasure, the waste of resources on war materials rather than developing our nation's other infrastructure and the nations around the world. I mean, there's so much that it could be done if we weren't putting men and women and civilians into the meat grinder of war and also spending all our attention and resources on those efforts. It would benefit the people at the lowest level up. They would profit from peace, whereas war is extremely profitable, probably even more profitable in dollar value, but only for the rich elites that are benefiting from it.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I mean,
So
I
where
think
I
in the
leave
long
off,
run,
right?
I think in the long run, peace is far more profitable. I think that profit is spread out.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt if they want to say that that's really profitable.
So
but
if
no,
in fact
I
there
agree- I
was
agree.
a
Peace is-
so if in fact there was a Jewish conspiracy theory to promote peace for profit, then it's just they're not being very good Jews because it'd be more profitable if they promoted war, right?
if possibly, I don't know. So I don't think it exists, but so I think that there is a conspiracy to profit from war, but it has nothing to do with Jews. It has to do with like Biden and the rich elites. So all that said, Jared Kushner negotiating the Abraham Accords was probably one of the most underrated achievements in the Trump administration. It should have been praised a lot more. That was something that no president has been able to do for the last 45 years of them attempting to do so actively. So for the first time in centuries, there was a real road towards peace in the Middle East. Pretty much immediately after taking office, Biden pretty much destroyed any chances of that. But for a brief moment, there was trade and travel between Israel and multiple Islamic nations for the first time in generations. And Kanye's response is basically, yeah, but he's a money-grubbing Jew. So world peace doesn't count. I think that peace itself is far more valuable than any dollar valuable that's being earned by war. And I think that if someone did the right thing and got peace to end unnecessary death and destruction, and they benefited financially, I don't fucking care if they did the right thing and received a benefit for it.
Imagine how much hate you must have in your heart to see that somebody made world peace in one of the most war-torn regions in the world, and their first response is, all right, but he's Jewish. What's his angle here? He must be up to something. There must be some ulterior motive. Like, how much hate do you have to have in your heart to, like, that's your first conclusion?
At least a gallon worth.
At least a little bit. So if there was any doubt that Kanye West, and again, I called Dyer after I saw this interview. I was like, bro, everybody else is talking about all the other parts of the interview, but I was like, dude, this is like the most anti-Semitic thing I've ever heard. Kanye, being a fan of our show, apparently, wanting me to not be wrong in my assessment of him, left no room for doubt last night. Like literally about
this is bad.
Less than 18 hours ago, he tweeted this out just to confirm that I was not incorrect. And Dyer, you can attest. I was like on, wow, that's really anti-Semitic of Kanye to say before he said this.
We had a whole rant over Signal about how we shouldn't have everyone who's been praising Kanye should be doing so because he's going to show himself as not being principled conservative and less than a day.
Yeah. Really, I'm really good at these predictions at this point. So Kanye tweeted this last night, which I just read, but we'll read again. I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going to DEF CON 3 on Jewish people. So first off, we'll point out that it's DEF CON, right? Defense.
Yeah.
What's the con stand for? Defense condition, right?
Condition, yeah.
Yeah, defense condition 1 through 5. And there's like a secret, 0 and secret 6-1, but we don't talk about those. So he's going to DEF CON 3, which I think he doesn't know the DEF CON numbers system. And then also he either doesn't know that it's deaf with an F or he's making some kind of death threat with this. I'm not entirely certain. But he's going to DEF CON 3 with Jewish people, which basically means that he's going to a state of war readiness with Jewish people. Oof. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew. Also, you guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. Now, I have sometimes written text messages and tweets when I was very drunk. And not that the content was the same. I don't turn into an anti-Semite when I'm drunk, but the sentence structure and weird capitalizations and punctuations, I think he may have been inebriated when he wrote this, is what I'm saying.
It would make a lot of sense.
It would make a little bit more sense. Yeah. So we'll let that sit there. We're going to keep analyzing this in a second here. But basically, Kanye's obsession with Jews makes him essentially a caricature of an alt-right anti-Semite. So like the kind of person that the left claims we all are, that the FBI is doing their best to hunt down, the caricature of the Tiki Torch Charlottesville goer. Basically that's Kanye. He is the caricature of an alt-right anti-Semite, where he's wearing White Lives Matter shirts, he's pro-life, and he's talking about how the Jews are controlling everything with their dastardly plans for money. Kanye would rather have war than let some Jew broker peace. That's pretty. I would say that's pretty average of an actual alt-right, actual white supremacist, actual anti-Semite. I think that's probably their position too. You know, peace would be preferable, but if it's a Jew who's going to get it, probably tainted. During his interview with Tucker, Kanye expressed also that the way for Republicans to get more black people to vote for them is to offer them handouts. Again, not exactly in those words, but after watching, something like 80 minutes of this interview over the 2 nights on Tucker, that's what I gathered is that's what Kanye thinks that Republicans need to be offering black people to get them to vote for them. So basically,
he wants Republicans to be more like Democrats.
Exactly. So more Gibbs. In Kanye's mind, there is no reality in which black people could just, exist without getting handouts. But in his mind, there's maybe a reality where the handouts can come from Republicans rather than from Democrats. And for the second part of this tweet, let's see here. So, quote, black people are actually Jew. Dyer, we've heard the idea that black people are the real Jews before, but where did we hear that from? It sounds so familiar. Where did we hear that from?
Why, that would be from the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Who are they?
Most famous for us is that is the group that harassed the 16-year-old Nick Sandmann and his entire class outside the Lincoln Memorial for a few years ago. But the group has been responsible for several domestic terror attacks and that were conducted in the name of black supremacy. And yes, they are a black supremacist group that believes that they are the true Jews and that the people that we refer to as being the Jewish nation today are actually stole that from them.
Dastardly Jews. They're making peace and stealing, I don't know, like ethnicities. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Dyer, when it turns out that Kanye is a black Hebrew Israelite, do you think all those conservative commentators that were touting him as some great leader of Christianity are going to apologize?
I doubt it, but they really should, and they should distance themselves from Kanye.
Yeah. And I'll also put out there, and I think we heard it in the clip that I played, Kanye trying to kind of hang a lantern on or couch his response by saying, well, people are going to call me crazy. Just because somebody preempts that, well, you're going to call me crazy, that doesn't mean that they're not crazy. That doesn't mean that. I know that they want to try to preempt that, and typically when they get to that first, all of a sudden you're like, well, yeah, but you're crazy. See, I knew you were going to say that. That doesn't mean you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're wrong.
Yeah.
So, him admitting that it might sound crazy is no. That's no, I don't know, justification for what he's saying. So, yeah, I also doubt that, people like Michael Knowles are going to apologize for that. But the reason, why are we doing this segment? Is it because we really care about what Kanye is? Is it because, you have Kanye's Twitter account with the bell icon so that you're always notified when he says something?
No, I don't follow him. In fact, I've only saw him because conservative commentators have forced him into,
and it's not just a little bit, right? So
a lot.
I think Crowder may have been the only one who did it, and that's only because his last show would have been Thursday morning, and the first Tucker part. No, I think Crowder did talk about the White Lives Matter shirt though. So Crowder did a segment, Lotus Eaters did a segment, all the Daily Wire. So Ben, Mike, Matt Walsh all did segments on it. Tim did segments on it. I believe Stex did a segment on it. I'm sure the list goes on and on and on. I only have so many hours in the day to watch commentators, but Tucker clearly did a segment. So yeah, we don't care. However, everybody that we follow stuffed it in our face this week, and so we really had no choice but to respond to it. We really don't care that Kanye is popping off about Jews in Twitter, because that's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've been on Twitter, like that's just kind of how Twitter is. We don't really care. It's not really any more important to us that Kanye is anti-Semitic than it is that some egg account with 2 followers is tweeting the same thing. But as we said, it's because conservative commentators across the board. I've also heard this talked about on SiriusXM Patriot. Wilkow talked about it. I can't remember what the other guy's name is. Hannity's talked about it. Levin talked about it. I can't remember what the other guy, I'm trying to think of what his name is. But everybody's been talking about it. And so Dyer and I could care less, but because everybody else that you guys are probably hearing is also talking about it, and they're touting how wise Kanye is. He's got all this wisdom as a Christian and as a conservative and as a pro-life advocate, and they keep touting how important it is that he's switched sides. And so we really had no choice but to counter the narrative, and we wanted to warn you to be vigilant. Kanye's voice is not one of wisdom, and he should not be treated as any kind of leader on our side. He's not a leader or an ideologue for conservative ideals or conservative principles, or even Christian principles for that matter, or Christian values. Treating him as such, nothing good will come from that. And Dyer and I would not be covering this unless all of the conservative commentary sphere is essentially talking about how great it is that Kanye popped in here for the last 3 minutes to be a walkaway. And I think what's actually going to end up happening is I think that over time, Kanye has been a devout Christian for about 3 years now. I would be surprised if he makes it another 3 years without becoming an outright Black Hebrew Israelite, or at least spouting consistently the same message points. And that's why you don't take somebody who very recently converted, especially when they were on the other side of stuff, and they really recently walked away and really recently converted to your side. That's why you don't take them and put them up on a pedestal, because it's going to be really embarrassing and really damaging to our side when in 3 years he's a Black Hebrew Israelite talking about not necessarily white lives matter, but maybe white lives just need to be in a separate area.
He still believes that the government needs to be handing out everything, and he still believes in racist institutions, and he still believes that a bunch of left-wing ideas about the world, because that's where it came from. And then the Democrats have a problem with anti-Semitism. The Women's March was plagued by several leaders of the Women's March wanting to bar Jewish Democrats from the march. There is a consistent problem, and they were Black Hebrew Israelites as well. So this is he comes here with a lot of baggage of his entire adult life to this point, having lived steeped in Democrat ideology. And what changed was that ideology started coming for him, started limiting his options, started making it harder for him to live the way he wanted to live. And that's why he changed tribes, because the right is now more safe and beneficial for him, but he doesn't have the principles and philosophy of the conservative side. So the way we Fox and I deal with a walkaway like this is, I'm glad you're not currently our adversary. I'm glad you're temporarily on our side, but we don't look to you for wisdom. You'll notice that we didn't share clips and comments from him about what he believes about conservatism, because we don't go to someone who newly started believing some portions of conservatism, or at least touting those opinions. We go to someone who's been right their entire life and about these issues, someone who's well versed in the rhetorical explanations of our principles. We learn from people who are wiser on our philosophy than we are. We don't go to someone who just recently adopted it and has the depth of knowledge of our philosophies of a grade schooler.
Yeah. The term that we've used in the past is the 10-year rule. So it's really simple. If you or someone in the last 10 years has actively advocated for a leftist cause or actively acted against somebody who's a conservative, or you've contributed money to or received money from or received employment from a leftist organization, if you've worked to further leftist and really Marxist causes in any way in the last 10 years, then please just continue listening. Continue sitting back, observing, learning, asking questions, but by God, do not consider yourself a leader, and don't consider people who can't pass the 10-year test leaders at all either. That is not going to lead to anywhere good. If you want somebody who is religious and has that depth, that wisdom of ages of time that you've actually spent in the faith or in conservatism, there's plenty of options out there. There's plenty of options. I bring up Mark Levin a lot because he's been a conservative for like 40 years that he's been like actively advocating for conservatism. But before that, he was a lawyer in the Reagan administration. Someone like that has a lot of wisdom, a lot of conservative wisdom to offer. Someone like a Kanye West, who's like, yeah, I think we should stop killing black babies. I don't disagree. But does he have, what's the principle? What's his explanation? I can explain quite a bit why I think that that's the case. And maybe it's enough that Kanye just knows that's wrong and that's against God. Maybe that's enough. That's enough for him to act in the world and enough for him to vote in the world. I don't know that that's enough for him to start spouting off philosophy and giving explanations why and trying to convert other people, because what's he going to end up doing? He's going to end up converting other people to black people are actual Jew. That's what he's going to end up converting people to. He's going to end up converting people to going to Defense Condition 3 against Jewish people. That's what he's going to end up converting people to. And just to, again, reiterate the risk of walkaways gaining leadership positions, as Dyer mentioned, and as we've mentioned on the show before, Candace is actually a walkaway herself, and she doesn't pass the 10-year test yet. She's very close. She's very close to the 10-year mark. But as recently as 2012, so she's really, really close. She would, her big thing before she was a conservative is she basically doxed and verbally aggressively harassed conservatives. She would find them, dox them, and harass them very aggressively. And then she had some kind of, come to Jesus moment or something with Charlie Kirk, and then she switched sides, and now she's in the Daily Wire. And what was one of the first things she did when she joined the Daily Wire? She went on the attack against Kimberly Klacik, who is, I don't know her deep history, but she's currently a black woman who is running for, I believe, Congress or maybe mayor in Baltimore. I think it was for Congress. And she was fantastic. She had a plan. She had reasons why she wanted to stay in her community and help it. She wanted to help people. She had conservative ideals that she was pushing. And for some reason, Candace decided that one of her first big things to do once she joined the Daily Wire was to go after another conservative. Why? Because she's a walkaway, because she's falling back on what she knows, which is being vicious to conservatives. And then who's recruiting Kanye? Oh, look, it's the walkaway Candace Owens that brings Kanye West into the forefront of conservatism. Thank you so much. See, that's the problem, is when they become leaders, is they also pull in other walkaways that are also not good principled, not well principled, and don't really know what they're talking about. And, is Candace going to now take responsibility after she promoted Kanye? Is she now going to take responsibility for whatever the hell this tweet is? No, she's not. And is she going to take responsibility for the people who are also, again, there's a lot of people walking away from the left right now because, well, the economy is collapsing and it's clear the left's not working and they're trying to, cut the dicks off your kids. There's a lot of people walking away right now and they need a place to go. And unfortunately, because of what Candace is doing, because of what the Daily Wire is doing, and because of what other conservative commentators are doing, some of those people might feel most comfortable looking to Kanye West for some wisdom on what to do next. They've never been a conservative. They've never been on the right. They've always been on the left. They might not even like American values. And now for the first time, they're trying to figure out what to do. And a lot of them are going to look to their cultural leaders, which Kanye West was probably their cultural leader when they were on the left. And now that they've left, well, I guess I'll see what Kanye's saying. And look at all these conservatives. All these conservatives are talking about Kanye. He must know what he's doing. I'll follow him. And so what's going to end up happening is that big mass of people that we could be teaching, that we could be pulling over to our side, and not just pulling over to our side, but also teaching over the next couple of years what conservative principles and philosophies are, they're now going to be directed towards Kanye and people like him. And what are they going to turn into? Well, they're going to turn into anti-Semitic alt-rightists that think that black people are the real Jews. Great. Thanks, Candace. Thanks, Daily Wire. You guys did a great job. Fantastic. Knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. It's going to, first off, by showing him as an example of what we believe, is going to give ammo to our adversaries who are saying, well, the right wing are Nazis and or they're anti-Semitic. Well, we're praising this person, and then we're saying that this person is an example of what we believe when he isn't an example. And then they go off and say stupid things, and then they say, well, this is an example of how bad the right wing is, right? And then we have the people that follow him, that are trying to gain wisdom from him, are going to be led astray. The best thing you can do as a walkaway who's learning what it is to be conservative is not to try to be the leader yourself, but to point to those who helped you learn about conservatism. Point to someone who's been right instead of trying to suddenly be an icon for this new ideology you just adopted recently.
Yeah. I don't want to keep going on it because it's Kanye and I don't care. And after this, I really don't care. It's just that if conservatives keep going after, oh, look how great he is, like, we're going to have to keep kind of countering that.
Yeah.
But after that, we will try to do our best to talk about him as least as possible. And I guess that's that for that segment. Unless Dyer has anything else to say.
No, we're good.
All righty. Well, we made it to the end of the script. We're into the expanse of unknown possibilities. Anything could happen. We could, end the show as is, typical and traditional when we get to the end of the notes. Or, I don't know, Dyer could say something. Who knows? Anything could happen. Oh, my gosh. That's unexpected.
Hey, I was thinking we haven't done like Jackbox stuff in a while. Game streams.
We have not.
It would be fun and less depressing to do that every once in a while.
We could. We could probably plan something like that this week.
Maybe the audience should show whether or not they'd like to do that by putting an X or something in chat.
We could do that.
Yeah, maybe. These streams do stay up, so you can put X in chat even after the stream goes down, because we are about to get off.
Yeah.
But yeah, leave a comment if you're interested in doing that, and also what you think the best time would be. But I think we should start considering doing something like that.
Yeah.
In any case, it's been fun.
A lot of fun.
Thank you for a great show.
Yep. Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week, and probably later this week.
Possibly.